We all think we know what's dangerous. We stay away from the things with the skull and crossbones on the label, right? But what if I told you that some of the most lethal things in the world aren't in some top secret lab, but are actually hiding in plain sight? Maybe even in your kitchen right now.
So let me ask you this. Think about coffee, that morning ritual you can't live without. Then think about water, the stuff that makes up most of our bodies. And finally, cherries, a perfectly harmless snack. What on earth could those three things possibly have in common? Well, they share one really surprising and kinda dark secret.
Yup, every single one of them can kill you under the right, or I guess the very wrong set of circumstances. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the hidden science that turns totally ordinary things into something deadly.
And we're going to start in a place you probably visit a dozen times a day, your pantry, because that's where we find some of the most common items with a pretty shocking hidden dark side. Okay, so on the one hand, you have something like polonium. I mean, this is straight out of a spy movie. Just 1 gram of its vapor could kill 50 million people. That's absolutely terrifying. But then, on the other hand, you've got caffeine, the same stuff that's in your coffee mug right now, and in a high enough dose, it can also stop your heart. So, how much is too much? Well, for an average person, the lethal dose is somewhere around 70 cups of coffee. If you could even drink that much that fast, it would completely overwhelm your nervous system. We're talking severe heart palpitations or even full-on cardiac arrest. Suddenly, that third cup of the day feels a little different, doesn't it? And it's pretty much the same deal with alcohol. About 13 shots, one after the other, could be lethal. See, alcohol is a depressant, so it slows your brain down. But too much, too fast, and it can actually shut down the parts that control your basic life support. Things like breathing and your heartbeat. Okay, so it's one thing for stuff like coffee and alcohol to be dangerous, but what about the things we literally need to survive? Turns out, even life's most basic essentials operate on this really delicate and potentially deadly balance. This number right here might be the most shocking one of all. 6 liters. That's how much water it would take to kill you if you drank it too quickly. It's a real condition called water intoxication. All that excess water just floods your system and it makes your brain cells swell up. And that can lead to seizures, a coma, or in the worst cases, death. And this just shows you what a crazy balancing act is happening inside our bodies all the time. Because while too much water makes your brain cells swell, too much salt does the exact opposite. It triggers a condition called hypernatremia, where your cells start to shrink and shrivel up. The tipping point for salt? It's about 48 teaspoons all at once. That's a ton of salt, but it's enough to cause severe hypernatria, which, just like with the water, can end in seizures, a coma, or death. It really is all about that balance. So the danger isn't just in what we decide to eat or drink. Sometimes it's in the very air we breathe. The world around us can be just as toxic if the conditions are wrong. I mean, our need for oxygen is constant. It's critical. After just 4 minutes without it, you're looking at severe brain injury. By 6 minutes, death is a very real possibility. And yet, look at this. It also shows what humans are capable of. Trained freedivers have pushed this limit past 20 minutes. It's incredible. And it's not just about a total lack of oxygen. Sometimes the air itself just doesn't have enough of it. At super high altitudes, what mountaineers literally call the death zone, the air is just so thin that your body simply can't adapt. Every second you spend up there, your body is quite literally dying. Now let's connect this all back to something you'd never expect: cherries. Swallowing a pit hole is usually fine, but if you chew and grind up just 1 or 2 of them, you actually release cyanide into your body. What that does is block a super important enzyme, and that stops your cells from being able to use the oxygen that's in your blood. So it's basically a form of suffocation, but it's happening at a cellular level. Wild, right? Okay, so for this last section, let's just flip the script entirely. We've talked about things that seem harmless but are actually dangerous. Now, let's look at a few things we think are dangerous, but maybe they're not quite as scary as we assume. We've all heard that chocolate is poison for dogs, right? Well, that's because of a chemical in it called theobromine, and it's actually toxic to us too. The big difference is our bodies are way, way better at processing it. So much better, in fact, that you would need to eat 85 full-size chocolate bars in one go for it to be fatal. So, speaking of things with a
complicated reputation. What about marijuana? What would it actually take for that to be lethal?
Well, the answer is a truly mind-boggling amount. To hit a lethal dose, you'd have to eat 22 kilograms. That's nearly 50 pounds of it. The sheer volume of that makes it pretty much physically impossible to do.
And what if you tried to smoke it instead? Well, as the source material puts it, the required overdose is, and I'm quoting here, comically high. It's just so far beyond what any person could physically smoke that it's not even considered a realistic threat.
So, what's the thread connecting all of these things? The coffee, the water, the salt, even the chocolate. They all point back to one single fundamental rule that explains everything.
Here's the most important takeaway from all of this. There really isn't such a thing as a poison. There are only poisonous doses. Anything, even water and oxygen, can be harmful if you have the wrong amount. It's not about what the substance is. It's always about the dose. And that really leaves us with one final thought. Just look around at your own life. From the medicine in your cabinet to the amount of exercise you do, maybe even the stress from your job. What else is only safe in the right dose?